Welcome to Shop Talk, where we chat about what's going on in our businesses right now, what's exciting and what's challenging. When something exciting happens, we want to ensure we're taking a moment to recognize and celebrate our successes. And when things are challenging, talking through them to gather each other's perspective is often so insightful.
And if you're going through any of these challenges at the moment as well, we hope that by sharing openly, you know you're not alone and that as business owners, we're all navigating this crazy journey together.
I think that last sentence there, we want you to know you're not alone, folks, because the last week in both of our businesses has been real fun.
Yeah, real fun, real fun in like,
in the in the
snarky
air
words
quote
in the
challenging
air
sort of
quotes.
way.
Right. Golly. And sometimes this is like the time in business where you're just like, I literally like by the time my husband gets home, he just like looks at my face and he's just like, "Oh, so
Hmm.
that's where we're at." And I'm just gonna be
Exactly.
quiet and try and like tiptoe.
Let me know when you're ready to talk about
Like last
it.
night, I opened a bottle of wine. I didn't even offer him a glass. I was like, "You don't need this."
You can have some at the bottom of this bottle
Right?
if I feel better by the second
Yeah,
glass.
yeah. So anyway, I'll say the one like as the day of recording is when we're recording this. I leave tonight to Peru for my second annual. It's not annual. Don't do it every year. I do it every other year. Second official Milk and Honey fam trip, which I am excited about. But also it's exciting because I, I would say the word is, I guess, proud. Like I feel like I put this kind of like incentive into practice as like a motivator, also as a way of team bonding and like giving an opportunity for us to travel together does like allow us to feel like more connected and also gives the team an opportunity to travel in the same way that we're trying to plan travel, which to be honest is probably not the way they're traveling on their own, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm not, I don't think I'm paying them enough to stay at the
Right.
top resorts around the
But
world.
which is hard to be able to pull itineraries like that together and to deliver that service if you've never actually experienced it.
Yeah. And I even remember the first time, like, Kelsey was taking a trip to, I think it was Turkey. And I was just like, hey, why don't you do like, oh, I'll gift you like a private guide, right? Like, I think I used, what's that Turkey DMC song, something,
See song?
C song.
See song?
And that was
Something.
probably like, yeah, I think that was like the first time she did like like had a private guide for a day, right? Like even just understanding the difference of like a
And
small
what was her like, what did she say after that? Like, what was
she really,
her
really enjoyed it. Like, and I think that like that was like kind of an understanding on my end that like it's easier to talk about, to sell, to engage with our clients and the types of travel components that we're offering when we know what that experience is like ourselves. So that's part of it. And then the
Mhm.
other part of it is just kind of like a bonus and incentive of like, this is
Right.
a great experience that you get to have by working at Milk and Honey Travels. But it is like also, it's a significant, I will say, investment on my end. It's not like I'm not paying consumer pricing, but I'm paying legitimate pricing. So
Right.
it's not
Right.
a fam I was invited
This
on or
is
we
not
were
a
invited on. And I'm
right,
not
this is
like,
not a free trip.
yeah, no. So, but anyway, I am excited. It's a new country for me. I've never been to Peru. I've obviously, never seen Machu Picchu. Like all of those things are going to be exciting and new. And we're going to have those experiences together. And I'm hoping and expecting the best. So as soon as I can actually
Awesome.
like leave my house with a suitcase packed, which is not packed right now, let me just, you know, clarify how my day is going. I'm going to be like A-okay. But yeah, if I
Yeah.
get there, then you'll know that all is good. And that's my exciting update for you.
That is very exciting. Exciting on my side. What's going on over here? Well, I have a new logo and I have copy for a new website. Nobody can see it yet because it's not live yet. Now the website is happening.
Oh my God, I totally forgot my other live thing because it happened on our master hour call that happened right before this. I only did a refresh, so it was not a complete rebrand, but she just
Oh,
texted me
nice.
like, oh, it's live, because we were like debating if it was going to go live after I got back from Peru. But I'm like, what was up in the meantime was very not great. So I just was like, just put it live and I'll announce it later. So it's live and I really like it.
That is super, super exciting.
Yeah. Are you looking at it?
Awesome. No, well, I'm trying to, so I think I mentioned in our last call that I'm doing like this live, live, this in-person auto show event. And it's on
Oh, yeah.
October 1st. And so I'm like a little bit nervous of whether or not the new website's going to be ready.
Mm.
I hope it is. I've been giving like feedback like as quickly as possible on everything that they send me to try to like not stall the process, but also there is a process to these things. So I'm hopeful, but let's see. Let's see.
So
But I'm
what you've
excited.
seen so far, you're really excited about. Like it really feels like you. It really feels like,
I'm super stoked with the logo and the new tagline. The copy is just out of this world awesome. And it's
oh,
totally
that's so cool.
like different than anything I've ever like seen or had before. So like my at first glance, I was like, I really love this, but this is so different. And then
Mhm.
I shared it with a few people to just get like a gut check from some other folks. And everybody was like, no, this is awesome. So
That's so cool.
now I'm just excited to see like how it's all going to come together on the website.
That's so cool.
Because
Yeah.
the ultimate goal is going to all of this work and expense is that my website starts to attract new to me business
Mm-hmm.
that is not solely based on repeat and referral. And that's never been a big part of my business model. And so this is new for me. So also kind of leaning into trying to figure out being the CEO and figuring out how to not rely on repeat and referral, because repeat and referral is not easy to build up. But once you have like a really solid client experience and you've built really solid relationships with your clients, repeat and referral does start to come naturally, which is awesome. So then when you are ready to like step outside of that and start to try to attract clients who don't know you and get them to land on your website, get them to take action, get them to give them your email address, like that's harder. And it's almost like relearning, like building a book of business in a new way. And
Exactly.
so as a CEO, like I'm not like losing sleep over it, but it's definitely just like constantly rolling around in my brain of like, I don't know the next best step. I have ideas that I'm going to try, but there's nothing that I'm currently doing over here that's like, yep, this is going to work.
Right. Right. And I think the way we've both, built our businesses is that we are going to always probably be responsible for lead generation. And that's different, right? If you're like, oh, I'm going to maybe have an IC model where like they all bring in clients, but I get
Mhm.
a cut and yada, yada, yada. And
Yep.
then you're not as responsible for lead generation for whatever for the ICs that you have. But with our business models, it is our responsibility to always be the lead generators and continue growing business, at least at this point, that is going to include new to us people that are going to come outside of the repeat and referral business. So it is something that it's a responsibility, I guess, that we have to
Yes.
like keep in mind, and it stays on our shoulders.
Exactly. Exactly. What's challenging?
Oh my God. A lot. And I don't know where to start. I'm like, do you want one thing or seven? That's how I feel this week.
7?
Yeah, at least. I mean, there's everything from like, and I think you know this if you've been in the business for like 2 seconds. If you want an influx of inquiries that are pretty time sensitive, you just book yourself a trip, make sure you're
Yep.
ready to travel, and get to right before departure and just watch it come in. Like I promised you, in the last 4 days, I am what? Like, first of all, I've had a pretty slow month. I don't
Me
know.
too. Honestly, it makes me feel good to hear you say that because this month has been so slow that I'm like, what is going?
Yeah.
And I've got a long list of people who I know want to travel for 2025, but they want to travel in fall of 2025. And my partners aren't getting back to me for spring of 2025 right now. So it's like, I know that there are some in the pipeline, but it's really too early to get them started. And so this month has felt a little too quiet on my side, if I'm being
Yeah,
honest. I don't like it.
exactly. Yes. No, I was feeling the same way. And so that doubled with the fact of like, I had a plan. I think I don't know, I talked about it on one of our calls. It might have been in the Advisor Accelerator, but here's my plan for, getting
Yes.
ready to go out of office and set myself up for
Yes.
success.
I think you all did it on Instagram. So just
Okay, I put it out there. I put it out there just so I could eat my words because, and not,
exactly.
listen, I was like, okay, yeah, that's what you're gonna do. Yeah, so ridiculous. Because here I am, just like,
Let us know how that goes, Brianna.
yeah, yeah. And you know what? Like one of them, like a referral from one of like my top clients, and it's like, we want to go to Australia over festive, and I'm like, no, I can't put festive off because what the hell? And then another one, like literally, like we'll go to a beach, any beach, we have no budget, again over festive, and I'm just like, are
I got
you?
a festive inquiry this week too. And you know what I did? I don't know if you're finding the same thing, but like, why are we planning festive right now for starters?
Yeah,
And second of all, this client went away for festive last year as well. And prices that I was looking up, like they just felt too high. He was like, I want to spend 10K. And I was like, well, what did you spend last year? Last year he spent $9,300. And I was like, okay, on par with last year. I'm looking at prices and I'm just like, this is expensive. This is expensive. This is expensive. What would it be if we went back to that same exact resort that he booked last year with the same
oh,
room category and the same flights? It's all available. So I was actually able to price it. It's 30% higher. The
wow.
same exact trip with the same dates, December 26th through January 1st, the same resort, the same room category is now $12,300.
That's incredible. And
30. So I called him. I was like, we can't work with this budget that like we
yeah,
can't work with 10K. Like if we booked and he understood and so he gave me the
yeah,
green light to increase the budget to 12, but I was shocked
yeah.
that
That's a really cool
I'm
thing to
sure
even look at that, to have that comparison because it's like literal facts. Like, we can't.
it's actual facts and like I can't change the prices here.
Mhm.
But like festive right now, is this what's happening to everybody? Like
I have
why?
no freaking
Why?
idea. And so here's the thing, right? Like I have a weakness when it's either a good client or a very good budget. Like they're like, hey, we want to go to Australia. We have a brother, our budget's 40K. And I'm like, I can do that. I mean, I don't know about spending, but like over New Year's, but like, and then the other, like they literally like, we have no budget. And I'm like, well, what's the last hotel you stayed at? And they were like, how do you say it? Les Maurice, Les whatever, Paris.
Oh,
Anyway,
La Maurice? Oh, yes. Okay.
Maurice.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, you maybe don't have a budget. Like that might not just be,
Right.
a lie.
That might be an actual true. Right. Yeah, exactly.
And then,
I can work with that
Kelsey's
no
really
budget.
good at like Googling people to be like, what do they do or where do they live? Just like see. And she's like, no. Like she's legit. So anyway, all that to say, like, and then Kelsey had COVID. Ellen was flying, visiting family, like all the things, right? So I'm just like, my plate is so full. This is not how I wanted to feel. Like I was trying to get
I'm
everything off
leaving
my
for
plate, and
Peru
it's
tonight, folks. Didn't you get
like
the memo?
and then I even told you right before I got in here, I have a client saying we want to change all of our accommodations for this trip that leaves in 6 days. I'm just like, Jesus, take the wheel. So anyway, none of that is even the challenging thing that I wanted to discuss. So let me move on to the real challenge that I've been dealing with the last week.
So what I'm hearing is that when you have a slow month, as I did this month, I just got to book a trip and
Yeah,
then
book a
the
trip,
inquiries
book a
come
trip.
flooding in.
Yep,
All right.
that's
I'll start
the
working on that.
advice that I have for anybody going through a little bit of a slump. It will work like miracle. So I had this challenging situation, and I think I put it in a Facebook, or I think I put it in Luxury Lounge, because I was flabbergasted, and I'm like, is this me? Am I taking this wrong? Do I need to accept some responsibility here that I just don't want to accept? But like, let me get some outside perspective, because I was just getting more heated and more triggered, and more like every email response that I sent got me more and more. So quick backstory. I had a client at a hotel in Jackson Hole, and I feel like I have no problem saying the hotel. I mean, not that they're listening to the podcast, but just, the point is it's a nice hotel. It's a virtuoso property, Caldera House, which is lovely. They had an amazing time. It was a really great client, and he was taking like his kids and their spouses. So it was 6 adults. They had a wonderful trip, and it was over Labor Day. And we had an issue with the booking that we made through the hotel for all of their excursions. We were told after the fact, after we asked for the pricing of it, that there was a 20% gratuity that they wanted to charge up front. And then we went back to them and we're like, the client would prefer to pay a gratuity on the property or at the time of the activity. They said, okay, et cetera, et cetera. And then long story short, the guest experiences manager went to tell the client, hey, here's the 20% owed for the gratuity. The client changed what she had put as the amount for 20% to different amounts. He said he did it because he also gave cash.
But she said that it was like a recommended gratuity. I think that's an important detail to not leave out.
And also, the very definition of gratuity is like, I feel like unless it is stipulated that this is a mandatory something or other, like the definition of gratuity is that there's some sort of like, you have some sort of say as the person giving it on what your experience was like or what, like,
or just build it into the price. Like if it is a required gratuity,
it should not be, it should just be, this is the price of the activity. I don't understand. Like, but that's, you're trying to whatever, make it seem a certain way. I have no idea. Anyway, the client felt that because he gave cash directly to the guides at the time of experience and or whatever his personal whatever feelings were, he changed the pricing, resulting in about $584 less than what the 20% would have come out to be. And so after the clients depart, after they're home, she comes back to me and says, you owe this amount. And
I'm just really confused why, if it's presented as a recommended gratuity, then let it be recommended. But if it's not actually recommended and what you mean by recommended is required, then why are you letting the client change the amount and then not saying something to the client right there in the moment of like, no, this is the amount due. Exactly. It almost feels like the parameters of this gratuity weren't clear, or they were clear and she just didn't feel comfortable saying it to the client right there in the moment.
And I seemed
so like then came back to you.
Right. I seemed like the easier person to go up against. And I was really bothered because I went back and read all of the email correspondence. Kelsey specifically asked her, is this mandatory? And she did not respond in the affirmative. This is what is recommended, or this is what, I don't remember exactly, but I remember specifically reading that Kelsey asked, is this mandatory? And she didn't say anything specific to the fact that this is mandatory. And she didn't charge the client just the amount that was actually, if this is not like suggested and there's no wiggle room and it doesn't even matter if you had a good time or not, you're still paying this 20%, then it's a charge, period. That's not what she did. She let him make the amount. She charged his card for that amount. And then she came back and charged me for the difference. And I was heated. She asked first, like, we're going to need to charge you. I said, you are not authorized to charge me. This is not our responsibility. This is between you and the client. But honestly, I don't even think you should go back to the client because you could have said something then and you chose not to. That was your choice. Agreed. Right? Like, I don't know. Agreed. I personally, as a business, I would feel like, hey, this client had a great time. We want them to come back. Like, I wouldn't want to put that feeling in there after the fact, like coming back to them for more money because you didn't want to ask them in the moment. But whatever, that's on you. That's between you guys. It's not my responsibility to pay gratuity that the client was supposed to pay and that was agreed upon that the client was supposed to pay. Never did I say Milk and Honey is paying gratuity for client experiences. I didn't go horseback riding or to the rodeo or any of that. So anyway, go back and forth, back and forth. And I'm just like, do not charge. This is not authorized. I'm sitting at dinner with my family and I get a notification on my phone. Did you authorize this Amex charge? The person, not nice name that I want to say right now, literally just went and did it anyway. And then I was so heated. So I'm 9 p.m. at night responding by email, like, what the F? And
Right.
it was so frustrating. Back and forth. I asked, like, hey, what should I do? And by and large, I feel like other advisors was like, well, you can do a chargeback. Like, they weren't authorized to charge that. And that's not okay. And whether or not like the conversation was going to go back and forth and resolved in a different way, I don't even care. This is in my email. I said, you know what? You have the opportunity to get that money and take it out of my commission. That's your right, I guess. I mean, if you were going to get paid by me in a way that like you were actually authorized to do, you had different options. You could have met me halfway. You could have suggested I'll cover half, you cover half. You could have done a lot of things. But what you shouldn't have done was literally after you've heard me say, I am not responsible for this, you're not authorized to charge me for this, do it anyway. So I've been spending a lot of unnecessary brain space and energy,
Yeah.
negative like energy that just gets me super heated and super triggered on this scenario based on principle, like
And just
not
like,
even based on amount
right.
of money lost, quote unquote, but
And the
just literally
continued correspondence just seems like it's going nowhere, basically.
going nowhere. And I'm CCing everybody by the end, like the director of this, the general manager, like putting all eyes on it, and nothing helped or changed nobody even actually responded like, oh, I see this and like we're gonna like have a talk, nothing. So it just left a really, really bad taste in
So
my mouth.
you're not going to like what I'm going to say next, but what if you got on the phone with the salesperson?
I
Like,
am okay with, like, here's the thing I know about myself. I'm not always great when I'm like, I could do that, but I'd have to get to a different place. Like when I'm very frustrated and I feel like somebody has like done me wrong, I know that I'm not
yeah.
very good at like picking up the phone and having a conversation. My professionalism
Yeah, I
gets in the
agree.
way.
Like, you probably want to take a walk before you make the phone call for sure. And I would have to as well. But I'm just thinking, just trying to put myself in their shoes. Like the person you were engaging with about like the charges at first, was it like a reservations person or a front desk person, someone like this? Do you know?
Their
Because then you said
specific
you
title
CC'd in the
is like the
salesperson.
manager of guest experiences.
Okay. So that's a guest experience role, which is they work like hand in hand with like front desk, concierge, like they're all like client facing operations type of roles. And so I'm just trying to imagine myself as a salesperson who is like suddenly pulled into an email thread that they didn't have any prior knowledge of.
Mhm.
If I were that salesperson, I don't know that I would jump in and start responding either. I think my
Mhm.
first reaction would be like, what's going on? Like, you know what I mean? Like to try to
Yeah.
go to my team and figure out like, where is all of this and what do I need to know and what are all the sides to the story and kind of thing. So I almost wonder if you reached out to talk to the salesperson directly and just kind of explained the correspondence leading up to the trip. This is what we were told during the trip. This is what happened, and like now this is the end result of like the action that was taken, which by principle I vehemently disagree with. And I mean, I would even go so far as to say, I don't want to call American Express and issue a chargeback. But the way that this has been handled, I feel like this is the only option I have. And so I wanted to reach out to you to share this with you and to see if we can come up with a better resolution. And
Mhm.
if maybe like a phone conversation
Mhm.
would help this situation, because the whole thing for me is just a little bit nuts. Like, whether a gratuity is recommended or required, whether it's charged up front or later, then they let him, like, they let the client change all the gratuities right there in the moment, and they don't say anything, and then they come back around to you and say, well, you still, like, the way that this was all handled kind of from the beginning feels like a really big gap in their standard operating procedures of, like, there is some wishy-washy grayness going on about the gratuity procedures, and it feels like you got kind of caught in all of this, of their,
Right.
like, gray area of not really knowing. Like, there should be firm answers to 20% gratuity is required. It is charged separately than the price of the tours. It will be added to your final bill. This is the amount. Full stop. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? So there were just so many moments throughout this entire story of, like, how it was even handled from the very beginning, like not quoting it up front to you, but then sending you a bill that included it. Like, it's just like, do you guys even know what your procedure is? Because it doesn't feel like it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then you got caught in the crosshairs.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I also don't like the phone, but pretty much 10 times out of 10 when I get on the phone, even when I don't want to, a conversation generally leads to a better resolution than email.
You are right. You are right. I feel like felt very unheard in the email correspondence, and that also kept triggering me. But
Mhm.
yeah,
And
definitely.
I think your emotions are valid. I would also be really, really upset. This would also be hijacking my brain. I would also be upset more on principle than on the dollar amount that was charged. Like, I hear you and I feel you, and your emotions are valid. But I guess I'm just like, I would hate for this to just be like, well, F them, never book them again, and, like, move on with your life, when maybe one more attempt at a conversation might, could just do that, like, on your way to the airport tonight.
All right.
You got time? The Uber
That's
to LAX, right? Like,
it. It's a long drive, at least an hour. Oh, shoot.
it's really crappy. Honestly, I haven't had anything like this happen too many times, but it is really crappy when it does, because I think what I say when something comes up with, like, a partner, like a supplier partner, is it's like, we're meant to be partners here,
Mhm.
right? Like, that's how our ecosystem in the travel industry works. Is when travel advisors and travel providers, suppliers, hotels, whatever, when we're partners, and when we're behind the scenes mixed up in something like this that we can't get resolved in a professional manner, that that messes this up for everyone,
Yeah,
industry wide,
right.
right? Like, we shouldn't be the ones working against each other.
Because it feels like the opposite of partner. Like, it doesn't feel like we're on, like, the same anything. Like,
And
that's what was
this isn't even
difficult.
a situation where clients were just like, no, I refuse to pay that. It wasn't communicated properly to the client. It was communicated as if it was recommended. And he was like, well, I'd like to tip a little bit less of these recommendations, which generally for a recommended gratuity, you have the right to do.
Right.
So this isn't even a story about a shitty client who's, like, causing a ruckus at a hotel that you're embarrassed about, and that he won't do something that he's supposed to do. He actually didn't technically do anything wrong based on the information that he was provided.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I don't see him he was I don't believe in any way, shape, or form he was trying to be an asshole about it. Like, that's not who I know him to be. It
Right.
just it
Right.
wasn't clear to him that,
Yeah.
like, he
So they
enjoyed
didn't
his
communicate
experience.
clearly. Yeah. So they didn't communicate to you clearly from the get-go when you were booking it, and then they didn't communicate to him clearly when he was on property, actually, on these experiences. but yet you're the one that has to take the fall for it.
Yeah.
That I disagree with.
It feels it feels very heavy. But yes, I think you are correct in that me and whatever her name is, I'm not, I am not her fan, but I can talk to somebody else at the property and have a better conversation, I think.
Well,
So,
please keep us updated because now we're invested.
woosah. Anyway, anything challenging on your end, in your business, in your life these days?
So I'm going to share this and I'm going to give everyone permission to just have a good laugh at my expense because I had clients who are referrals, so I don't actually know them, but they're referrals from a really great client who reached out probably in like June. So I was on maternity leave, but that doesn't matter. I chose to respond. And they want to go to Wimbledon. And I was like, cool. I want to book more Wimbledon.
Yeah.
So they did fill out my form. They did give an estimated budget that I knew right away was too low, but I couldn't necessarily respond because I was like, well, what does Wimbledon cost? Like
Right.
I have to go figure this out. And then I also have to know, what do you want to do in addition to Wimbledon? Are you literally going there and coming home, or are you doing that for a day or two and then building a whole itinerary around this? And so I didn't have enough information at the time to really respond thoughtfully in terms of like, this should be your ideal budget. And I couldn't have because even they didn't know what they wanted to do outside of this sporting event. So we've been in touch for the last few months, but like communication has always been slow in the way that like I always like send information, but then I have to follow up and be like, did you receive those details? And then they're like, oh yes, we're still interested. And then I would send them, I would answer the next question. And then you can see in our email thread, I'm looking at it now, it's like one email from them, three from me, one email from them, three from me. And that's me following up. And so
Mm-hmm.
at some point when you see this type of thing, like I often will just kind of like let it go. Like if I have to continually follow up with you to like keep this moving, like I shouldn't care more about your trip than you do. Right.
Right.
So I don't know what was slowing them down. I'm not really sure, but finally they were like, yes, we're ready to move forward. Can we schedule a call? And so I was like, yes. And then I kind of went back in our correspondence and I realized I was like, hey, we've been chatting back and forth for quite a bit this summer. So forgive me if I've already shared this information, but like during our call next week, this is how we'll, what we'll do on the discovery call. We can discuss kind of a full complete itinerary before and after. Here's a link to my process on my website. This is my research and design fee for this trip, and I kind of shared all of that stuff. Now, in their defense, none of that was shared up front because I wasn't ready to get on a call with them. I didn't have pricing details. I didn't know what my fee was going to be because I still didn't know what they were asking for. That's in my defense. And in their defense, they're like, you charge a fee, what?
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much what they said.
Mm-hmm.
And so their response was, we are still interested in this trip, but to be honest, we have not worked with a travel agent who charges an upfront fee and are not sure what we will gain from doing that. And I had a mental breakdown because I was just like, I think back to the beginning of this call where we're talking about like my entire business is repeat and referral. And
Yeah.
so fees are on my website. Fees are mentioned in my form. Fees are mentioned in my first email when you reach out before we have a discovery call. So I almost never talk about fees
Yeah.
because by the time you get to the discovery call, they're literally asking me like, how can we pay you?
Right. It is
And
already a given.
And this conversation it just went a little bit differently, which happens sometimes. And so that was a surprise to them. It was an unwelcome surprise to them. And now I'm facing this idea of like, they don't want a video call because they're older. They just want a phone call. And so now I'm getting on a phone call with people who don't know me, who I can't see. So like I can't read their body language. And I do really value video calls for that reason.
Do you do video calls for all of your consults?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I look
You
homeless every
don't?
day. No.
I mean,
Only when
I
they
just
ask
look
for it.
I go from homeless to not homeless by putting on some mascara. That's how if you ever see me like, oh, she put on mascara, she stepped out of her
Yeah,
homeless
yeah.
situation. That's about all you get from me. Otherwise, I'm just very much take it or leave it. I just can't get all dolled up all the time. But yeah, I always do video calls.
Okay.
So I'm going into this situation thinking like, they don't know me. They've never seen me before. They have no reason to trust me. Now they want a phone call, not a video call. And I felt like I was being put in a position of like, I'm calling these people to like prove myself to them. That was like my gut, like emotional response to that email that she sent of like, we just don't understand what we would gain from that. Well, this was sent last week and the call was this morning. And so I had like days to like have this rolling around in my brain to literally to the point, and I need everyone to hear this, that I was scrolling back on my own podcast feed of like, where are the podcasts where we talked about how to talk to a client about a fee and what to say? I need to go back and listen to myself or whatever guest I had on to figure out like, how do I prove myself to this person, or how do I answer the question like, why should we charge a fee?
Right.
Well,
Not because you
that's
don't know
not
it,
the
but it's
approach.
because you've been far enough removed that you just haven't like practiced that elevator talk a
Yeah.
lot,
Yeah.
and probably because it felt a little personal and triggering in the moment, like, which is like,
It
what the F
did.
do you mean? Why do I
It
charge
did.
a fee? Are you kidding me?
How about we've been in contact for 3 months
You think I just do
about
this for shits and
Wimbledon
giggles?
and the exactly. You think I just had all the information that I've provided over the last 3 months just in my back pocket, just shooting from the hip for free? Like what? So luckily I was able, there was some distance between the email and the phone call that I was able to like put aside the nature of like that knee jerk gut reaction of it feeling like a personal attack. And I was able to lean more into just listen, just ask questions, just find out what they're looking for, find out what they want to do, and let my expertise guide the conversation. And forget about trying to prove why I charge a fee or why I charge the fee that I do. And I went into the call in this way. And long story short, they are not only moving forward, but they are happy to pay the fee. And
Mm,
what happened in 20 minutes to shift that mindset was simply that I asked a lot of questions to discover that Wimbledon is a passion of hers and it's not a passion of his. And so now they're just going to, and I think that this is probably a little bit of the tension between why this took a few months of like, this is an expensive experience. And
right.
half of the party, it doesn't really have any interest in this expensive experience. So how do we manage this? Right. And so she was like, so I'll probably go to Wimbledon and he'll probably do something else. And I was like, okay. And they're like, we definitely want to do, Buckingham and Westminster. Cool. What else can we do? And I was like, well, if you're interested in World War II history at all, like I highly recommend the Churchill War Rooms. And he just lit up. And I couldn't
Mm,
see him, but I could feel his energy where he's just like, I'm really interested in World War II history. And I was like, well, if you're really devoutly interested in Winston Churchill and the Churchill War Rooms, we can actually do a full, like half day guided walking tour around the city, really focusing on Winston Churchill, ending at the Churchill War Rooms. And it can just be a fully immersive World War II day. Or some people feel like that's a little bit too much and we just do the Churchill War Rooms. And he goes, no, I would love all of that. And I was like, well, if
mm.
Billy is interested in this, if your partner's interested in this, then you can do this together. But if she's less interested, then this can be what you do on the day that she goes to Wimbledon. And they were both just like, that sounds amazing. You
Right.
go do that. I'm going
We
to do
both
this.
have our ideal vacation, and we hadn't even thought that
Yeah,
that was a possibility. It says so
exactly.
much. It honestly, and I don't even know if you mentioned this, but like it goes back to that fact, or which we keep bringing up a lot in conversations of the like, it's a yes until it's a no. Like it felt no.
Oh, it felt so hard. No. And I have to say, Jeremy, if you're listening, I've been
Jeremy,
channeling
listen.
Jeremy because
We all have.
tomorrow I have a discovery call that literally started with, and I quote, "We got your name from so and so. We want to go to Rome next August, stay in an Airbnb. We are not ready to plan or book. We just want to get some ideas." And I was like breaking out in hives. I was like, this is awful. And I was like, it's a yes until it's a no. And I scheduled a call with them. So I talked to them tomorrow. We need a shop talk follow up to find out how your conversation went and how this Rome
Yeah.
Airbnb is going to go. But I'm really, really trying hard to lean into just get on the phone and talk to people because I actually didn't have to prove myself at all. All I had
Yeah.
to do was
You
listen
just
and just
literally,
apply I
you just
just
showed
applied
your
the expertise that I
expertise.
have
This is
and just
actually what I
asked
have
good
to offer.
questions.
It's so
And then they were
valuable.
like, well, what else? Yeah. And I was like, you don't need 10 days in London based on what they were sharing with me because they don't want to go to shows and they're not interested, like overly interested in dining or anything. And so I was like, 3 or 4 days in London is probably enough. And they're like, well, what else can we do? Like, do we go to Ireland? And I was like, well, that's absolutely an option. Here's what we could do there. And I was like, or you can take the train up to Edinburgh. Like, Edinburgh is a fabulous city. Scotland is amazing. And then they were both just like, we like that idea. And so
Wow.
I think that they were really sitting at home feeling like, well, I want to go to Wimbledon, but you don't. And then what do we do with London? I guess we go to Ireland, but she's already been to Ireland and he hasn't. And so I think that they were just feeling kind of like, about this trip.
Mhm.
And it took 20 minutes with me to be like, you do Wimbledon, you do Churchill, then you go up to Scotland. We're going to end at the castle stay. It's going to be beautiful. And by the end of the call, I was like, I know that my business model is a little bit different. They're 70 years old for reference. So they are more used to the traditional travel agent
Yes.
model. And I just said, I know that my business model is a little bit different than agents you've worked with in the past. Do you feel comfortable with my research and design fee and moving forward and planning this trip together? And they were both like, yes, absolutely. And then he said, how do I pay you?
There you go.
So I just want everyone to hear this, that like this still happens to us. I do
Yes.
not immediately have an answer for how I respond to like, why would we pay you a fee? But the phone was better than email in this case because she was a
100%.
lot nicer on the phone than what she sounded like in an email. And I was able to far better display my expertise over the phone, far better than I was able to over an email.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So,
like it's a huge reminder, but also lesson that there is a lot of truth. They weren't wrong, and neither were you. Like, it was
yep.
just like, things started off different than the normal path, and they had expectations based on previous experience. And, your expectations are based off of the experiences that you have, and neither one party is wrong, but that's really cool that
And
they
their
were
question
able
was
to.
not a personal attack.
No, not at all. They were just like, oh, every other time I've done use this type of service, there hasn't been a fee there. I haven't even considered it's, because that's not what the industry was like 20, 30,
Right.
however many years ago. And
Right.
that's fair. That's totally fair. And
Yeah.
also, like, now they know like how much more valuable how we approach travel advisory is than just simply using a travel agent. Yes, they booked your hotel and what have you, but travel advisor is our differentiator in a lot of ways, especially in a trip like this.
Yes.
Like, it is so much better. It's going to turn out so much better than they believed it could be, because they have an advisor on their side who really actually cares about the specific experience they're going to have in this destination,
Hmm.
and also broadening the destinations they even thought they were going to. So, yes, Sally and
Exactly.
Bill, I'm
Exactly.
really looking forward to your trip.
And it's another London and Scotland. I think that this has been one of the most popular itineraries I've planned in the last 6 or 8 months.
Oh, wow.
Scotland and
Okay.
London. Scotland and London. I don't know why, but here we
Yeah.
go.
There you
I'm really
go.
good at it now.
Take it. I literally do none of my
I'm a
London
dominant expert.
itineraries. So I suck at London, but
What do you mean? Who doesn't?
well, Kelsey used to live in London, so I always just like make their London
Oh,
work. And this is what they like.
cool.
I don't even have like I've been to London personally, but only in my last career, so never as like
Yeah.
a tourist. And
Yeah.
so my personal London knowledge is very low. My personal like where London race
interest.
is not high. Yeah. And
Yeah.
also, yeah,
Yeah.
she lived there
Yeah.
and she loves it. It's her favorite country. So I literally just am
Okay.
like, make it work. I don't even give input. So anytime I have a personal
Cool.
London trip on my books, it's actually not my expertise coming into play. That's all I meant.
Cool. I love it.
Anyway,
Well, a
well,
lot of challenges
a
this
lot of
month, but
challenges.
we're
Country's
going
the
to
name
come
of
back
the
next month and check in on these challenges because I do feel like we want to close the loop on these things.
game. Yeah, let's do that. All right, I'm off
Okay.
to pack a bag.
Yeah, go pack. Have a fabulous trip in Peru. We'll talk about that next month because I want to hear how this biannual
Yes.
team retreat situation. Is that what you're
Yeah.
calling it? Not a retreat, but like,
I'm calling it a fam trip because every other year I do what is going to be a retreat, which is like a short, like for relaxing purposes, like a weekend, you know? So
cool, cool, cool.
yeah,
Okay.
that's
Have a
my
fabulous
incentive
time.
package.
We'll be following along on Instagram, so don't forget
Yeah,
about us.
we won't. You know, I love to share.
I know
All
you love
right.
to share. Bye.
Bye.